explanation, man is God. It almost sounds heretical to say that, right? Doesn't it? It's like man is God. And the very brief explanation, he says, granted the reality of both natures, divine and human, and of the union in person and hypostasis, this is true and proper. Man is God, even as this God is man. For this word man may stand for any hypostasis of human nature, and thus it may stand for the person of the Son of God, whom we say is a hypostasis of human nature. Now it is manifest that the word God is truly and properly predicated of the person of the Son of God. Hence it remains that this is true and proper, man is God. All right? Clear as mud or what? Does that make sense?
Pretty much, yeah.
But again, if you don't understand the terms, because just in that little paragraph, we had person, hypostasis, divine, human, nature. I mean, you got under predicated. I mean, what does that verb mean? A lot of language. You got to understand it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any comment on that one, Adrian?
Yes. The only thing I would say, in which I think we'll probably get to in a second, is that you have to be careful in saying that man, in terms of the nature of man as a whole, like the thing that man is, humanity is not God. Now, that's important to know. When we say man is God, referring to Christ, that Jesus is God, not to say that you and I are God. Humanity is not God. Man is God.
Yeah. Well, then what about when, and I totally agree with you, but what about that famous quote, I think it's Augustine, that said God became man so that men could become gods?
Yeah.
Have you heard that one?
I have, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And,
so that refers to deification or theosis, as the Greeks would say, which is not to say that we become divinity, but more so that we become like unto divinity in terms of conforming our nature to God, to Christ specifically. So theosis and divinization, that could be a whole show in and of itself, actually.
All right, next, we're only going to go over 4 of these, but next one, whether what belongs to the human nature can be predicated of God. Now, this is the one, William, where I'm saying, in regard to Jesus, could you say God is laughing? God is eating. God is taking a walk along the Sea of Galilee. And do you remember what the answer to that one was?
I believe I said yes. Did you say that was correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, did God laugh? Thomas. I think Thomas would say yes.
Yeah.
Because what he says here, the reason for this is that since there is one hypostasis of both natures, the same hypostasis is signified by the name of either nature. Thus, whether we say man or God, the hypostasis of divine and human nature is signified. And hence, of the man may be said what belongs to the divine nature, as of a hypostasis of the divine nature, and of God may be said what belongs to the human nature, as of a hypostasis of human nature. Right? So, anyways, I think that's probably pretty straightforward. I mean, if you got God and man's nature together in one person, well, then whatever that person does could be, you could say the man does it or God does it, right? Adrian, any thoughts on that?
Are you familiar with the term communicatio idiotum, or idiom, communication of idioms?
No.
So the communication of idioms is used, and this is what Thomas is doing, and this was basically invented by the medievals and the people right before the medievals, the communicatio idiomatum, which is referring to the communication of idioms, saying that we can attribute some things that are applied to the person of Christ and are predicated to the person of Christ, and attribute it to the human nature or the divine nature, or whatever happens of the human nature or divine nature. We can then say the person of Christ, which is the second person of the Trinity, did it. But we can't get what is of the human nature and apply it to the divine nature, or the divine nature and apply it to the human nature, only to the person.
Yeah. On a side note, and Adrian, you're probably familiar with this, and Thomas talks about this not specifically with like a grasshopper, but could God have assumed grasshopper nature? Like, could
God
could God have instead of becoming a man, could he become a grasshopper? Yes or no? What do you think? Now, again, Thomas addresses this in the Summa, but he doesn't use the example of a grasshopper. What do you think?
I guess. I mean, he didn't, but I guess he had
I
the
would say
power
he
to.
could.
I'd say
Yeah.
he could. Yeah.
Well,
It would not be fitting.
Well, I don't know. I don't think he can, because a grasshopper cannot have an intellectual nature, right? So
That's a good point.
because you would have one suppositum, because what man and God have in common, and tell me if you disagree with this, Adrian, is that we're both intellectual beings, right? So you can have you're not compromising anything, but a grasshopper cannot. They're incompatible together, right? Because they don't. You can't have one being that's both irrational and rational or intellectual at the same time, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because because the grasshopper would no longer be a grasshopper. Yeah, it would have to be something else above its nature, right? I mean, because the human nature wasn't compromised in Jesus. It was still fully human. It wasn't like it was lifted above itself. It still was fully human, right?
Right.
Agree or disagree, Adrian?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that more, but I'd be curious. Where in the Summa does he address that issue? Because I'd be curious if he says that it's necessary. It's like, for instance, if we say that whether it was necessary that Christ become God, or that God become man, was it necessary? Well, in the strict sense of the definition of necessary, we would say no, he could have done otherwise, but it was the most fitting thing that he could do, and it was necessary in a lesser sense. Kind of like how we would say, is it necessary that you and I eat? Well, it's not necessary, meaning that we could, like the world's not going to end if we don't eat, but if we don't eat, it's necessary for the sustain of our lives that we eat. And so in a sense, it's necessary, but it's not absolutely necessary. So is it true that God could not take on any other nature and only man's nature? I would say, or could he become an angel, for instance? I would say maybe. I could see if he became an angel, where would they be united in? They would only be united because there's no body. But not to say that the divinity is contained in the body, because it's not.
Well, the angel one's easier
I don't know.
because you still have two natures. You'd have angelic nature, you'd have divine nature, and you'd have one.
Right, but a cricket has a nature.
Yeah,
It doesn't have an
but the angel and God both are intellectual, and so it's just that. Yeah, there is a question. It's in that same part. It's like the question is asked, and Dan, you might remember this one because we went over it in class, is whether instead of the second person of the Blessed Trinity assuming human nature, could the first or the third, could the Holy Spirit have assumed human nature? Could the Father have assumed human nature? And Thomas says yes, because whatever power they share in the same power in this, that's kind of interesting. You think, but then he also,
then later there was another argument about whether it was fitting or something for them to have done that. Or
which was most fitting, right?
Yeah,
and then,
which was most fitting, and it was the Son, is what he.
Concluded, right. Most fitting that the Son do it. All right. So whether this is true, God was made man. Okay, so that's the third question. Is it true God was made man? I think we all know it's true. A thing is said to be made, that which begins to be predicated of it for the first time. Now, to be man is truly predicated of God, yet in such sort that it pertains to God to be man, not from eternity, but from the time of his assuming human nature. Hence, this is true, God was made man, though it is understood differently by some, even as this, God is man. Okay, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Last one, is it true Christ is a creature? Is Christ a creature? We went over this one, William. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I think, yeah.
Yeah. Is Christ a creature, Adrian?
No. but it could be said if you say Christ's human nature is a creature, but you cannot say that Christ is a creature.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that one? We went over that one in class. Do you remember that, Daniel?
No, but we have the text here.
All right, I love this.
I can reread it.
He quotes Jerome saying, "Words spoken amiss lead to heresy. Hence, with us and heretics, the very words ought not to be in common, lest we seem to countenance their error. Now, the Arian heretics said that Christ was a creature and less than the Father, not only in his human nature, but even in his divine person. And hence, we must not say absolutely that Christ is a creature or less than the Father, but with a qualification in his human nature," which is pretty much exactly what Adrian just said. So, yeah. Adrian, you've been reading the Summa or something, or what? What's going on here?
I have been reading the Summa. You told me ahead of time, so I went and read all the articles here beforehand. I didn't know which articles you're going to go over, so I was like, I better read all of them. So
did you read all the objections and answers, or just the corpuses?
I did.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The objections and the answers.
Yeah, very good. I don't think
I enjoyed the objections.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I didn't say
No, yeah, I pulled it up.
Yeah. Would you have read them if I
Yeah,
said
and
If I had time, yeah.
this one's a little long. This one's a little long.
Yeah.
It took me a couple hours actually to get through it all because this one's a little longer than the other ones.
Yeah, I've gotten
But I really like it.
Yeah, I typically read the corpi, the corpuses, the corpi, whatever the plural of corpus is. And but yeah, the objections and answers are a lot of fun as well. Okay, so those are the only ones I'm going to highlight, and we're going to move into trivia here in a moment. Did you by any chance bring any trivia, Adrian, or no?
I did not. I did not bring any.
I brought enough to go around, no problem.
I can certainly come up with some trivia for you, though.
I'm trying to figure out how I can handicap you. Because with these guys, like maybe you have to count to 3 before you answer, and let these guys have a chance to answer first. Not that you two guys are dumb or anything, but it's just
who knows?
Adrian's
you might be surprised
he's got
what I get wrong
on you. Well, what do y'all think? Do you want to have just wide open and you compete against the master, or do you want him to have a 3-second handicap?
I'm down for either one.
Okay. What do you think, Daniel?
Either.
Okay. All right, man. They don't want to give you any handicap. So
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay, before we move into trivia, and Diane's got the sound. Don't play it yet, Diane. Any questions, thoughts about what we just talked about, the Incarnation, some of these questions about Jesus, or you want to just move right into trivia? Anything you find perplexing or interesting?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'd say, I don't know if this really had much to do with what we're talking about, but I guess it has to do with Christology a little bit, is my dad figured out that I was going to do a show here about Christology, because I told him, and he brought out a book and told me about the 3 what's it called? The 3 I don't know if they're called visions, but they're the 3 things God sees. Like he has the beatific vision, and then there's the 2 other ones.
Oh,
I can't exactly remember what
like as Jesus.
I think so. Yeah.
I know there's a comment in the
he
Summa
has
about
3
when he walked the earth. He had the beatific vision.
Yes.
In fact, he had it from the moment of his conception, if I recall. Don't you? Have you seen that one, Adrian, in the Summa, where Thomas believes Jesus had perfect knowledge from the moment of his conception. Can you imagine? And then you're like in the womb for 9 months. I'm kind of glad I wasn't, fully aware, because that would have been a little claustrophobic. Pretty interesting.
So what's interesting about that is that actually brings up a really interesting debate among the Scotists and the Thomists. The Scotists will say, because we both agree that in the knowledge of Christ, his human nature saw the beatific vision, was a subject face-to-face with the beatific vision. But the difference became in the question of, did Christ ever sin? Now, the Scotists and the Thomists agree that Christ never sinned. That's clear. But the debate became, why did he not sin? The Scotists said he did not sin, the human nature of Christ did not sin, because of the same reason that those in heaven that gaze upon the beatific vision cannot sin. Because those in heaven, experiencing total and perfect beatitude, their nature, their intellect, has a grasping, but not, well, I guess grasping is a bad word, witnessing the beatific vision, has no desire for sin, and in his freedom chooses God. Whereas the Thomist would say that Christ did not sin because of its unity to the divine nature, because of its unity and subordination of its will to the divine will. And that's why, because of the hypostatic union. So they do not sin because of the hypostatic union, or just go to say because of the beatific vision of the human nature.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, they're reaching the same conclusion, but with just different angles, right? Yeah.
Right.
And
Exactly.
that also, and I'm studying a lot about Adam and Eve, the first parents, and they it's very interesting. And I think we may have covered this in the show one time before, but they had all the knowledge of all things. They were like their knowledge was like angelic, because they were entrusted to pass knowledge along to their descendants. And how can you? Who's going to teach them, right?
Right.
I mean, there's nobody there to teach them, and so they. Did you know that, Adrian? That they were basically had like infused knowledge of all things, and also like basically all the virtues as well. It's
Infused knowledge of all things, or of all things they needed.
yeah. Thomas even says they didn't know how many grains of sand were on the beach. He uses that example.
Okay, yeah.
It's like everything that they need to know, which is basically what the angels have as well.
Right.
Knowledge is so interesting. I mean, the infusion of knowledge in like what the angels have compared to us, and anyways, all right. So William, thank you. We started off with your comments. Daniel, anything you want to mention before we go into trivia? His mic's not on.
Not really. I probably would have had something if we weren't figuring stuff out half the time.
That's all right. So let's go ahead and transition into trivia fun. And Sissel is not here to introduce this, but all right.
Something to think about. There you go.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, so both of our young scholars here have said that they want to just be on equal footing with Adrian the Master. So let's go ahead and just whoever says the answer first. Some of these are easy. Some of these are more challenging. But let's go ahead and do it, and I'll keep track. 11 questions total. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
All righty.
Which they all have to do with Jesus, by the way. Okay, appropriately so. I like to have questions that relate to the topic. Okay, number one. Which prophet in the Old Testament predicted that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem?
Isaiah. I think.
When somebody gets it right, I'll let you know.
Oh, okay.
Which prophet predicted the Messiah?
I was going to say Isaiah too.
All right. It is the prophet Micah.
Oh.
I never would have got that.
Okay. Yeah,
Nope.
Prophet Micah.
We could just read off the prophets.
What does the word Christ mean literally?
Anointed one.
Yes.
All right. Okay. See, you guys, you're taking on the master. So Adrian's got this one.
There you go, folks.
Okay, this will you can get up to 3 ones right here. God spoke audibly to Jesus on 3 occasions. What were they?
They've got
Baptism, transfiguration, and what would be the third one?
it's got
Okay. Okay, baptism, yes.
I've-
Transfiguration, yes. What was the third one? This one kind of caught me by surprise.
Is it the agony in the garden?
that's what I would have said.
I was
but
thinking.
also not.
But I was
let's see.
I'm forgetting. It might be depending on the
okay.
translation.
Okay, his crucifixion. Okay, so Jesus said, "Now my soul's troubled, and what shall I say?" And God said, "I have a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it, and will glorify it again." The crowd that was there heard it and had it thundered. Others said it was an angel who had spoken to him. John 12:27-29. Do you remember that one? Yeah.
No, I never would have got that one.
Okay. All right. So if you're counting at home, Adrian has 3. Our young scholars have yet to hit the scoreboard, but the game is young. Okay. Number 4. What were the last words that Jesus spoke?
Okay.
7 last words?
The last.
All of them?
Well, just the last
Oh, boy.
the last words. I mean, what was the last thing he said?
before the ascension?
Before he died.
Before he died.
Before he died.
Trying to remember the exact.
Let's see. It is finished. Into your hands I commend my spirit.
Okay. In your hands I commend my
Behold your
spirit.
mother.
Yeah. Okay. So all right.
You're okay.
Okay, yeah, I think the last
Then it'd
okay, yeah,
be-
you had the last one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Okay, which of the prophets of the Old Testament prophesied Jesus's resurrection?
Isaiah.
Resurrection.
All right, William is on the board.
There you go.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, get Isaiah in there.
Okay.
If you don't know what it is, Isaiah.
Here's a good chance to catch up to Adrian because this has 3 answers also. Okay.
Okay.
Jesus raised 3 people from the dead. Who were they?
Lazarus was
be-
one of them.
Okay,
Lazarus.
Child.
The
girl.
child.
I'm sorry, I need a little bit more information than that.
What was the guy's?
We know the girl, the
Jairus,
centurion's
daughter.
Uh,
And then there was some other
Okay,
guy
Lazarus.
along
Well,
the
you
road.
got Lazarus, right?
yeah.
Okay. Whose daughter?
Centurion.
Okay, what's Jairus? Jairus. Okay,
Yeah.
what
You
do
know
we-
his name? I didn't know we knew his name.
We'll give that one to Daniel.
Okay.
Okay,
And
and
then
who else?
Let's
there's-
see, who else?
A guy, young man. I forget what
Wasn't
the
he a
guy's name was.
centurion's servant?
That might have been
No,
No, he was healed.
Jairus.
Oh, okay.
Jairus' servant.
His servant was healed.
Some young man. I forget the guy's name.
All right, we're going to just
They
have
were
mercy
traveling
on
somewhere.
Daniel and give him this one. The widow
well.
of Nain's son.
Okay,
that's
that was
right.
what it was.
Okay,
The
so
widow of Nain's son.
all right, so William has 2, Daniel has
Okay.
2, and Adrian has 4. So this is still a horse race here. Okay, so you guys are within reach.
Yeah.
All right, and you can go home tonight and at the dinner table say, guess what? I beat Adrian Fonseca at trivia. Okay, here we go.
Not that hard.
Okay, so what does the name Jesus mean literally?
Boy.
That's it.
All right. Yes, God saves. Right. Very good. Okay. So, according to Scripture, how many wise men visited Jesus?
3.
It doesn't say.
Oh wait, no, yeah, right.
You two just
Forgot about that.
totally bit
Forgot
that one. I was like, you should have seen these guys, man. They're jumping in. Yeah, it doesn't say. And okay, now why do we think there's 3? Because we got 3 names, right?
Yeah, the 3 names.
Does
Yeah.
Scripture give the names, or is that just through? That's through. It's just the Scripture say.
I don't think Scripture gives a name.
Yeah, I don't think so. Casper, Malthiar, and Balthazar.
Balthazar, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all right. Okay, number 9. Who announced and proclaimed that the baby's name would be Jesus? Who
Angel
prophet?
Gabriel.
That'd be
Oh.
Gabriel.
Okay. Yeah, the angel. Yeah, very good. Okay.
Which angel?
All right. Jesus likely spoke 3 languages. What would those languages be?
Aramaic, Greek, and Latin.
Latin, Greek.
Oh, Hebrew and Latin. There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know?
Yeah. Actually, there was 4. Okay. So I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
guess there's-
All right. So I lost track of score. Let's just say you guys all got those right. Okay. Final one here, and this will be see who can get this one. When Jesus was tempted in the desert, and he said to Satan, "It is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test."
Mm-hmm.
Which book of the Old Testament was he quoting?
Matthew.
Of the Old
of the
Testament.
Old Testament.
Old Testament.
Do not put the Lord your
Psalms?
God to the test. Which one?
I have
Jeremiah.
no idea. I'm gonna guess Psalms.
Okay. Deuteronomy 6:16.
Yeah, never would have got that. Never would have got that one.
Yeah.
All right. That
I was
brings us.
spitballing it out there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Adrian, thanks so much for. You'd probably normally be thinking about going to sleep at this time of the day, wouldn't you? After getting up so early in the morning. But
Well, not today. Today I gotta do some. My friend's getting married tomorrow, so I gotta get ready for that.
Oh,
But,
okay.
yep.
All right. Very good. You the best man?
No, I'm serving his wedding, so I'm gonna be altar serving.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Well,
It's gonna be great.
thanks for joining us. Appreciate it very much, and have a great weekend. God bless you.
You're very welcome. God bless you.
All right. And thank you, William, and thank
Absolutely.
you, Daniel, for being on the program today. Sissel and Jonathan, and I think both of you guys, not next week. You're not going to be here next week.
I won't be here
William
next week.
and Daniel, you going to be here next week?
Depends.
Yeah, it depends.
That's fine. Next week's the first.
Little
Yeah,
non-committal. That's right.
yeah, I should be
okay.
there. I should be here.
And
At
thanks
least for
to
the next
Diane.
week.
Diane had to do extra work today trying to get all this set up and arranged. So thanks for her hard work in that regard as well. And thanks for listening, and watching the program Back to the Father today. We'll be back next week. God bless you, and praise God for this great news today about Dobbs versus Jackson, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, as we celebrate the solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. God bless you. Have a great weekend.